To be a part of the show, call 866-594-4150. Under the Hood is produced by Prairie House Productions. All content is the property of Nordstrom's Automotive Incorporated and may not be used without our permission. Copyright Nordstrom's Automotive, Inc. Now, let's go under the hood with the Nordstrom's Motor Medics.
Welcome to the Under the Hood Show. We are glad to have you with us. Russ Evans is here to answer your automotive questions.
Thanks for joining us under the hood.
Shannon Nordstrom is here to do the same.
Welcome, hoodies. Thanks for tuning in so we can help you tune up.
I'm Chris Carter here to answer your calls at 866-594-4150. 866-594-4150. What has caught your attention in the automotive world?
You know what's caught my attention in the automotive world is the realization that we all get a little bit older and that we're truly blessed that we can still actually move, you know. Some of us have a bad back now and then, but you, me. If you'd looked at the YouTube feed for today, you'd see the thumbnail up there is a person upside down underneath a dash, which is me.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, at my age, upside down under a dash, and that was for half a day. That's interesting. I did it, and then I thought later, did I just get, oh man, and then when you get up, it's like, oh, I'm kind of stuck in that position for a while. It's like you froze, like you put it outside and you froze like a garden hose, and then you had to move again. But yeah, we've been doing several heater cores lately, if you can imagine that, especially with this long season. So crawling underneath a dash upside down has become standard procedure during a lot of events.
I think wisdom with age is simply knowing that, like when I was a kid, when I was 25, if I would have done something like that and hung under a dashboard for an hour, when I'd get out, I'd go, oh, that was kind of a weird position. Huh? Age is just simply knowing I can't do that. Knowing before you do it that it's going to hurt. That's all age is. It's just knowing that you can't do it anymore. Because when I was a kid, I couldn't either. I just ignored it.
You're right, Chris, because I can distinctly remember when I was probably 8, so that goes back a while. One of my punishments for something I did, which was stupid, and it's funny, I can't remember what I did wrong, but it was to organize all the nuts, bolts, and screws in my dad's drawer of nuts, bolts, and screws, which was in the garage in an old file cabinet. So you open the thing, and even being a lot shorter at that time, I was still pretty tall, but I was a lot shorter. I was bent over. All I remember about the experience was that I was organizing the nuts, bolts, and screws, and that I'd stand up and go, this is uncomfortable. And then I'd have to go back to it and said, well, this isn't so bad if I'm still bent over, but standing up, and that's probably the only reason you remember painful things.
Right.
Will keep memories from. Otherwise, I probably would have forgot that I even organized those things.
That is true. They say you forget the pain, but you don't forget that you had it.
Right.
866-594-4150. Let's talk to Chris. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Chris, what can we do for you?
Hi there. I just recently got an 05 BMW 330 Xi, and the windshield wiper blade delay is acting funny. Sometimes it won't delay at all, and they'll just be on normal speed. And then sometimes it'll delay, and it's kind of all over the place.
Well, you know, in my car, I have a special feature, and it's in every vehicle. I don't know how I was so lucky to get this feature, but I have sometimes a windshield wiper police that rides with me. I wish everybody could have one, because I'm often told when the wipers are running when they shouldn't be.
Okay.
When I should turn them on faster. When I should turn them on slower. For some reason, this police has become the expert on how windshield wipers should be run. This would be very confusing to her.
Does it tell you, or does it just switch it?
No, are you talking about him or me?
I'm talking about you, Shannon.
Oh, she tells me.
So it beeps at you?
It's a lady.
Okay.
Yeah, she goes, beep, 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 turn those things on, turn them off.
No, it's not with any sort of malice. It's like wipers, you know?
Okay.
A lot of people do that.
It's just something about, that's the thing. You know,
I do that.
I can't have the wipers on when the windshield's dry, you know?
All right.
Are you just catching on?
Just catching on.
Oh, you're slow.
I thought that in your car, maybe you had
No.
Okay.
It's my beautiful wife, Tammy.
Yes, yeah. I have one of those.
It's a thing. She notices the wipers. She's probably watching right now and saying,
about Chris's car?
Why do you tell this? I don't know the answer, so I'm just making up something else to talk about.
Okay. All right. Now I'm tracking with you. I'm not.
Let's go back to Chris and his 05 BMW 330 Xi with intermittent, strange operating wipers.
And I maintain that it would be a cooler car if it were called the El Diablo or the Thundercat. I don't like car names that are just numbers and letters combined. Although I like them more now that I'm old man.
Well, I think I know this, but I think that on BMW with this one, the numbering sequence always was, this is a 3.3-liter engine, and the X means that it's an all-wheel drive, I believe, and the I believe, means that it's injected, which I think they all were by then. But is that kind of how the nomenclature goes on that deal?
Yeah, yep. They introduced the I when they started doing fuel injection, and then they just kept it, even though everything's that way now.
Or did I get it wrong? Is
And
it
then,
a 3.0 motor on a 3 Series?
Yeah, it's 3.0. And then it just depends on the year and the model year with what that number sequence means. So that the first number is always basically the 3 is the compact sedan and the 5 is the larger sedan. But then the next two numbers correlate with the engine package.
Are you done showing off over there?
I had to do something because I'm so inadequate on this windshield wiper question.
So now we can go, all right, Russ, we're done talking. You can take
you
it
answer
now.
this question? What do you think, Russ?
I have no idea. You guys have gone off on such a tangent that I've forgotten the original call.
Perfect. So, okay, ask some more questions. We'll figure it out.
Well, it should have, that system also should have, it could be, depending on the option, speed compensated. So the faster you go, the faster the intermittent speed goes. It'll wipe faster. If you put
So
it
then
on
it's going to
slow.
have CAN bus communication that's
Right.
coming in there from that.
So if you're stopped and you put it on 1 and then you go down the road, the faster you go, the faster, the quicker
Kind of like
the
speed
interval.
compensated volume on a radio to overcome a road noise.
Also,
And I have noticed the radio kind of going up and down on the volume too,
when it's not supposed to?
even when it's not supposed to.
There you go.
Well, kind of when it is, but then also it seems sometimes like, what the heck's going on?
It's erratic. So instead of steadily increasing with speed, it might be a little different than normal.
Right.
You might have a speed sensor failing in the car. So what's happening is it's not getting a steady, smooth signal. The speedometer is buffered, so that would smooth that out a little bit so it doesn't jerk all over the place. But if you've got a speed signal that's a little off, that could cause your radio to do weird things with volume. It could also cause the wipers to not give the right interval for intermittent.
All right, Russ. I mean, what do you do? How does he know this? I mean, what if he's bringing it to our shop or to a BMW technician that has the thought process in his head of what he's going to be looking for? What do you do?
Well, in this case, first I verify what's going on because it takes some explaining for
Hopefully
somebody
you can duplicate it.
for somebody to go, oh, now I get it. Now I understand what's going on. Then the second thing, as the tech, I would get the scanner out and I would look at the speed signal and see what the speed signal says. But I wouldn't just read the number because it's going to buffer a little bit. It might say 30 miles an hour. I want the graph that shows where that thing's been from 0 to 60 and down to see if there's any dropouts or glitches, spikes in there. That'll tell me if there's a problem in the speed signal. And then I'm going to go after the sensor itself. I'd probably go down to the sensor and probe it with a multimeter, drive the car and watch it and see what I'm getting. But with that age of car, it wouldn't surprise me at all if the speed signal is a little erratic, that it needs a new sensor.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Well, it's something that you don't think of right on the surface. I mean, you have typically people think of, all right, is my switch a problem? Is my wiring that goes to the switch a problem? Is the
idea of censored wipers a problem?
Yeah, is there is the wiper motor itself have a problem? Some vehicles are different than this BMW, and they have a separate module in line that controls wiper function, and then it's just a pretty simple 2 or 3 speed motor that it's connected to, or a variable speed motor. They all have a different setup. So you got to first understand how it's put together. Maybe his car doesn't even have this option we're talking about. Maybe he doesn't even have the speed compensated wipers. Then, but the type of car it is with the option level is, I'm going to guess that in 05 he might have already had that.
Yeah. Does that help you out there, Chris?
Yeah, it does. That makes sense. I at least got somewhere to start looking.
There you go. Thanks very much for the call.
Be sure to visit our website for news, contests, and previous shows at underthehoodshow.com. Welcome back, everybody. It's time to get back under the hood with the Motor Medics.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. Let's go to Montana and talk to Tracy. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Tracy, what can we do for you?
Morning, guys. Well, I'm going to lose all credibility if I ever had any as a do-it-yourselfer, but I was changing the oil on my 05 CRV, something I've done my whole life, and just like after 100 miles or so, I just started getting this ticking noise.
Uh-oh.
And it was mainly at idle or if I went up a hill. When I changed my oil, I always keep a lot of oil in stock, so I grabbed a 5-gallon jug, and then I saw that I still had a little bit left, like 3/4 of a quart in another jug. So I put that in there first. Then when I got ready to go to the dump, I realized that I was missing my old used power steering fluid that I siphoned out of my other vehicle. So I've been driving with that in there. I immediately changed the oil again, left the filter on it, and added one of the small containers of liquid moly oil additive. As soon as I poured that liquid moly in, like within 5 seconds, the ticking at idle stopped. But I still have some noise when I go up a really steep hill. In other words, when there's a pretty good load on it. And it's only got 360,000 miles on it, so I don't really want to replace it.
What's the goal, Tracy?
Is it 500?
Tell me if I should start saving for a motor or a different vehicle or.
No, wait. I just was wondering what 500,000 miles, was that your goal? Or, you said it's just 360.
Well,
something called Russ and Shannon.
But he's using this for Postal Service, which was really going to beat it up compared to some other things. We have a company that brings us vehicles every week for an oil change on the same vehicle every week. So today in our shop, we'll have probably 3 or 4 of them through there. Some of them have over 500,000. They have never, these are CRVs, 9, 10, and 11s. They've never had engines in them, but they're on the road continuously. They travel across country with them constantly. So these things can make it a long time. The slower stuff does put a damper on mileage, but I think Tracy could probably go a while. The ticking that occurs in these engines, you do need some valve adjustments in them.
I want to jump in here and just say, first of all, Tracy is a longtime listener, great listener, frequent caller. And Tracy, I want to commend you because you easily could have said this is Jeff in Washington and not taken
the heat for the mistake that he made.
It was my brother-in-law did this, but for you to call and fess up, I applause to you first of all. And now,
well, thanks.
So what was it you put in there?
The liquid moly, they make a engine oil additive.
No, but before that.
What was the mistake again?
Black used old power steering fluid.
I got lost in your description there on what you put in there. Gosh darn. So the jug he grabs off the shelf is not oil.
Right.
He had dumped. There's a lesson in itself about not labeling containers. I know OSHA always asks us about that.
Tracy's going, oh, really? Thanks, guys.
Just some masking tape that says, junk power steering fluid would have been appropriate at the time. So go ahead, Russ.
I think he's okay.
Okay.
I've just changed the oil. You might have to do it a couple times. You could put some additive in there too, but I think you'll be fine. It's not. We have people put the wrong stuff in cars sometimes, and it's some cases, you can do severe damage, but Other cases, you don't do any damage. So, but I think in the case you're in, you change the oil, drive it, see what it does, put an additive in it. But I don't think you really wore anything out. How long was it in there, though?
You said, go ahead.
Only about probably 300 miles, but it wasn't ticking before that. And I will adjust the valves. I've done it.
See, what
Okay.
I'm a little concerned that, Russ, just thinking about this.
300 miles.
I'm a little concerned, though. Why did you flush out the power steering fluid? Was it in conjunction with a part failure, or was it just a maintenance issue?
That was a different vehicle, and it was just a maintenance issue.
Well, I don't know, because if it would have been because of a part failure and you had some metal filings that you knew were a little stronger in there or something like that, I'd be quite concerned.
I was curious where you were going with that.
Yeah.
So if the power steering fluid was not completely contaminated, that's better.
It's got to be better.
Yeah.
It's got to be way better.
But yeah, if it were, okay.
I'm just thinking of the composition of power steering fluid versus engine oil. What it's going to do on those
It's very thin.
Yeah, what's going to do on those surfaces.
It's hydraulic oil. It's very thin. And it's made to protect power steering pump gears that are close to each other but not touching each other.
So is the biggest danger that he lost some oil lubricity by
I believe he could have he might have to adjust the valves again because he could have some lifter wear on it. That's a thinner area.
That's not a problem. That's the worst. You don't think, Russ?
I think that's about the worst thing that has happened. I don't think that the lower end, unless you hear a noise, I don't think that's been damaged. But right now, engines, the cam area that has all that pressure on it seems to be the most susceptible place for the oils we have today with the missing ZDDP that's in oil. They're just, it's problematic. So it's causing some issues and wearing out cams. I mean, that's why our partner Justice Brothers, we're using, engine tune-up and heavy-duty vehicle and ZDDP additive in these vehicles because the older ones, the newer ones, they're pretty good, but the older ones, anything back in the mid-90s, even early 2000s, the oil is not as good as it used to be, and it needs a little extra protection to protect the cams.
And that Liqui-Moly was a national partner of ours for a while.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good product, too.
And which is to say, too, I don't take that out of context. The oil back then versus the oil now, your engine and oil combination may be way better. Don't think that using old oil or, you know what I mean?
Yeah, don't use old oil, especially if it's power steering fluid.
Right, for sure.
No, I think you're fine. I would set the valves again and just keep using the right oil in there.
How long before he can just forget about it and put it out of his mind, you think? I mean,
Tracy never will. Tracy never will.
No, yeah, he
He will never put it out of his mind.
But he'll maybe get over it a little bit, Tracy, you think, right? I mean, if he didn't do any damage.
I was concerned I might have damaged the timing chain. Or, there's the one cam gear on there that is actually variable. It's part of the variable timing system. I was worried about that.
No, I don't think so.
All right.
It's hard to say for sure.
Yeah.
It really is. It really is. But I would say most likely
the fact that he caught it when he did and got it.
And knowing that he doesn't, I don't know, he's not out pushing this thing 100 miles an hour and revving it past the red line on a regular basis, unless you're fighting snow and mud right now, and you are. I don't know. But he probably wasn't putting it under heavy stress either.
Tracy, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. How long before you would put this out of your mind?
Well, if the noise went away and I drove the thing for a month, I probably will have forgotten that it's happened.
Okay.
Can I give a different take on this?
Yeah.
From Russ's perspective?
That's what I was going to get to. I would say he'll never forget it.
No, I would say this. If he did it himself, he would be cautiously watching it for at least a month.
Okay.
If someone else did it, he would never forget.
I got you.
I'd watch it every day.
And
Did I hear a noise?
For me and you, we would forget it the next day because we make mistakes like that so often. We have to do.
Yeah, I would.
You have
as
to
long
be
as I
able-
knew it was working again,
Yeah.
and didn't make any noise. I think I'd forget about it pretty quick.
It'd be gone.
But then you guys would remind me, say, "Hey,
Oh,
remember
sure.
when?" I'm like, "No, I totally forgot about that."
That wasn't me. Yeah. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show. The number to reach us, 866-594-5800. 4150.
Find out how you can participate in the show by visiting underthehoodshow.com.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. If you follow us on Facebook and you join the Hoodie Fan Club at underthehoodshow.com, you could win a hoodie.
Like Bruce Grimm, he listens to us and watches us on YouTube every week. And just like that, his name pops up. He goes, I hope I win a hoodie. And guess what? It's weird. Like when you say, where are my parts? They should have been here by now. And the guy drives in right as you're calling saying, where are my parts? And they're here, same thing. It's like, well, look, you won a hoodie. So get on YouTube. You can comment there or whatever you want and check us out. Our friends over at Universal Technical Institute have brought him this hoodie. Well, not physically.
They won't physically carry it to him.
Brought to you by them. So congratulations from all of us here at Under the Hood and our friends over at Universal Technical Institute, the place to go when you want to learn more about automotive and a whole bunch of other stuff. You can get trained there. Check them out, uti.edu.
866-594-4150. Let's talk to Mike. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Mike, what can we do for you?
Yeah, see, I've got a 2016 Ford F-150, and lately my brakes, they stop me just fine, but if I'm pulling a trailer, an ice shack, a boat or something, and I really mash on it, the pedal will start to fade away. It'll always stop me. I've not had any issues with stopping, but it'll go almost all the way to the floor, and I'll pump it, and it'll come back, and I don't have any issues. But it does bother me that it does that, and it just started doing that, so I had the master cylinder replaced, and I looked to see if there was any recalls, and I'm not seeing any. And then I was told that master cylinder will bleed off just by design. I'm just looking for answers here. Maybe that's a common thing or not. I don't know.
All right. So when you say it bleeds off, this has got to be very specific. When you're holding it with steady pressure and the pedal's good and you're coming to a stop and you're not moving your foot, you're just holding steady pressure and then you completely stop and you hold it, does it bleed off there, or do you stop one time and it's fine after you've pumped it a couple times and then you're driving down the road and then you decide to step on it again and it goes way down?
Well, if I at any point will stop and put some pretty significant pressure on it, it will bleed off.
That's not good.
How many miles are on this truck?
75,000.
Okay.
So what we're saying is that it is bleeding off while you're on it, right? That's what's happening?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. If it bleeds off while your foot is on it, you can either have a problem in the ABS pump, or if this is assuming we don't have any leaks, a problem in the ABS pump, or we have a problem in the master cylinder. If we could duplicate this in the shop where it would do it pretty much every time, I could take the two lines off of the master cylinder and replace them with a brass plug. And then I could stand on it. And then I guarantee I've got nothing else in the system hooked to it. And if it never fades, then I know my problem is in that analog brake system. Because if you have a inlet and outlet valve that are hanging up in that thing, it'll just bleed fluid off. It's meant to bleed fluid off while the anti-lock system is active. But when it's not active, it should not. And we have replaced a couple pumps, 2, maybe 3, for this problem. So it could be that you've got a valve hanging up in there. That is where a brake system flush comes into play. When quick lube places are I'd say the worst one for it, but that's not the correct term. They're the ones that are most aggressive about it, saying you should get your brake flushed, or a dealership will say that. And people say no. Well, I think the reason is it's been overprescribed so many times. I was just going to use
that term.
That people are leery of it, and you don't need to do it when you don't need to do it. But if it becomes due by using a test strip to find out if it's becoming acidic, the problem that you run into is this. You can have valves hang up and stick. So, yeah, you might need a brake flush.
And I'm just going to ask the obvious question. You've checked the brake hardware, the pads are all good shape and all that stuff, correct?
Yeah, I did actually had to have the emergency brake pads replaced here recently. They were literally came apart.
And,
So they've been replaced. The pads are all good. So
and those brake pads, those emergency parking brake pads, they call them, they won't affect your braking. You can take them off, throw them away. Your service brakes will still work like they should because those are disc, and then the drum runs your.
You're not suggesting he do that. You're just saying
No,
if
but
it
people
happened,
do.
yeah.
Plenty of people come in and we pull the brakes out and say, "You don't have any parking brake," and they say, "Oh, we took them off last time." I'm like, all right, well, we'll leave them. They're rusted up.
Mike, thanks very much for the call. Good luck.
And on that particular instance, if he ends up finding that it is the anti-lock brake assembly, at that point, he's looking at some serious dollars
For a new one.
for a new one, and a recycled original equipment used that you could find like on Car Dash Part is a great option for that.
Okay.
In that particular case, he has a hydraulic problem most likely, and if it's that style, a lot of them you can take the electronic portion off and replace just the hydraulic portion and not have to do any programming or anything after you reinstall it.
I have questions about this brass plug. I want to come back to it if we get a chance, but we've got calls here. So if we get a lull, I have brass plug questions for you. Let's go to Maryland and talk to Bill. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Bill, what can we do for you?
Hi, really enjoy your show.
Thank you.
I have a question or two about the oil changes. So when looking at some used cars for purchase, oftentimes there are cars that have gone a year or longer without an oil change. And so even if the mileage is not that high in between the oil changes, and I guess a lot of that's with COVID, where people just weren't driving their cars. So a mechanic told me that just with the car sitting there not having an oil change for a year or longer, that causes sludge that's bad for the engine, and to stay away from cars like that. I was wondering what your thoughts are.
It doesn't necessarily cause sludge just sitting there, but what causes the problems is the moisture that builds up. And especially if you're in an uncontrolled climate. If a car sat in climate-controlled storage with the oils all topped off and just, shut off fresh, at that point, your biggest challenge is the media in the filter breaking down because of its being submerged, sitting there in oil and not being used. So the filter media breaking apart and getting into the system. It happens, not super common, but it definitely happens, especially with a lower quality oil filter. But just simply sitting there doesn't cause the sludge. It's the moisture that builds up from condensation inside the engine.
So either atmosphere around
Right.
or short drives.
Right, and then you start running it and you don't get it up to temperature and you don't burn off that condensation, and eventually that starts mixing in with your fluids. You got probably a little more carbon burn off when you first start the vehicle up because it's been sitting and it's going to run richer for a little bit longer. That culmination of things will create sludge. But if it's just simply because they didn't drive the car a lot and they haven't drove it a lot since then, a good oil change, new filter, you're typically going to be fine. Russ, would you agree?
I'd agree with that.
And I just want to make sure I'm not getting out of school on what I say here because he's so much more hands-on with his team up at the service center. The other thing that you got to watch for is when you're looking at service records, understanding where the service records come from. And so if you're relying on, say, Carfax is a name brand that does a very, very good job. When Carfax first started, I was always a bit skeptical about how they did things because they were putting their name out there with their marketing so hard, and their network hadn't been developed as deep as their marketing.
Where are they getting their stuff is what we thought.
But since then, they've made tons of strategic partnerships that make good sense. And so they're getting data from so many different repair shops around the country because of consolidation and different people that have bought who and bought this and bought that. They're able to get their hands on the data for most of the maintenance of vehicles. But what they're never going to get their hands on is if you change your oil in your driveway, in your garage, they'll never see that on Carfax.
Nope.
If you have your buddy in his repair shop that is still using paper tickets, and he doesn't have a system that he uses, they're never going to see that repair. There's certain brands of electronic shop management systems I don't know this for a fact, but I'll take a really good guess that there's certain brands that do not prescribe to allow Carfax to take that data. Because right now it happens automatically. Russ signs his contract to put in the Mitchell system, which is owned by Snap-on, correct?
Yes.
And I talk about the consolidations and conglomerations, but once we sign that contract, you don't get to sign that contract and use their system unless you agree. You can't opt out, can you?
No, you can't. And then, AutoZone owns all data and they do the same thing. But yeah, you're not able to opt out of the way this works, because when you read,
sorry, I got off on a tangent here about this. So.
This is good on these things to find out, so you can help them on used cars and new cars when you're getting them. But whenever you sign up for an app or something, you always see all those things you got to read, the terms and conditions. Everybody just says accept. Read one, just once, and you'll probably be so scared you'll never want to use anything again. But that's in the terms and conditions. We have the right to share some of your information with our partners who will keep it private. Sure, they will. Well, are they keeping it private if it's being shared with?
But it's typically what they'll say is the aggregated data.
So in Bill's case, it's something to be aware of, not necessarily avoid.
Well, and I would want to understand the vehicle, where it's been. So if you've got regular changes at the same place all the time, and then all of a sudden a gap, and it's been the same owner. Unless you can ask a question, maybe you can ask a question to somebody. Did somebody else own this for a little bit? I don't see a transition. You're probably seeing it all, but just always be aware you might not be seeing all the changes.
And we've talked about this before. We had a caller say, why don't they allow you to put it in if you're the shade tree mechanic? Because it has to be regulated. Otherwise, anybody could put in that it's all brand new. So because that has come up.
Maybe there is an option. Is there an option like that where you can... I don't
know.
I've never seen it.
We can self-report to General Motors when we buy parts directly from a dealership from General Motors. We can put those on our AC Delco account by the receipt number and the dealership number, saying we bought it, and it goes on like a credit for buying so much stuff or whatever. But we have proof. We have a receipt. It's hard facts. It's just like saying, "Oh, I always take care of my car." Sure, you do.
Okay, so. There's a question. I obviously bring my car to you. If I'm somewhere else and get an oil change, I can bring my receipt to you and you can put it under my...
No.
Okay. All right.
No, not in that case. Now, that would be great if they allowed you to do that. But no, they don't as far as Carfax goes. But
they also want to know where the work was done.
And I have had some people say, well, I don't want my info on Carfax. It's kind of like the old thing, like the red light camera. Are they fair or are they not? Well, are you obeying the law or are you not? Because if you are, it wouldn't be a problem. And with your info being reported on when your oil is changed, if somebody wants to know, okay, you did a good job or you didn't. And for the most part, most people don't look. But when you're, in this case, like Bill, where he's looking at a car and he wants to know is this car a good one to buy? If it's sat, like Shannon said, in the case of being at the car lot, it's not a problem. Now, if the person that owned it had it at their house for 5 years and did oil changes like that, then it's a problem.
And you could say that if you don't want your info on there and you're not ever you don't care about the resale value of it, that's fine for you, right? I mean, the only reason you wouldn't want it on there as a car owner, even if you're leery of it, is because when you go to sell it, you can say, here's the maintenance records.
So, Bill, did we help you out or just talk a lot?
Well, two real quick questions. So one is so like if it's sat on a lot at a dealership and the weather varies at the location, that's not the situation where you were talking about where it's temperature.
No, it would have to be it'd have to be, like I said, a very extended period of time. If we just physically take the engine out of a car, which we do at our facility, and we put it in a storage warehouse that is not climate controlled, there's some of those engines that sit there for years, and we have not done any super special preparation to them. And Russ and his team get them to install them, and they're just fine. The motor itself, it all has to do with the continued maintenance. I see you're out there in Maryland, Bill. I had a chance to talk to Michelle at Maryland Public Television. And I come to find out they're the producers of Motor Week. I was doing an interview for our trade association. Do you ever take that show in out there?
Yes. There's some great shows on there.
Exactly.
Hey, one other quick question. Oh, go ahead.
Well, go ahead, Chris.
No, go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, one other quick question. So you were, I think it was that last show, you were talking about the special oil that you put in for high mileage vehicles. So if a vehicle, like let's say 2011, but it only has 50,000 miles, would you still wait until 100,000 miles to put in the oil for older vehicles because the engine has only got 50,000, or would you do it because the car is pretty old?
I'd go about 75,000 due to the age.
Okay, that's a good middle ground there.
Yep, 75,000.
There is no exact right or wrong answer on that one.
No.
866-594-4150. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show.
Make a radio appointment each week to hear the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. Let's go to Florida and talk to Mark. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Mark, what can we do for you?
Hey, Chris, I'm in the left-hand lane. Just kidding with you, bud.
We got a listener here for sure.
Hey, just want to thank you guys. I appreciate your podcast. I listen to you guys all the time. My friends in New Jersey listen to you. I turned them on to you guys. So thanks for all that you do. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, nice compliment. Thank you.
So my brother's got a 2012 Honda Civic. Every 2 months, his dome light goes out, burns out, and then he has issues with the car starting. He replaces the dome light. He's already disconnected the running light. So I guess this is more aimed at Russ. Russ, please help me out because he's driving me nuts.
Is he throwing a fit?
Yeah, pretty much so. Nice guy, but
couldn't help myself.
Man.
So the dome lights stay on.
Wait, why is this a question for Russ?
He knew.
Hold on a second.
He knew.
Okay, Chris.
Mark,
go for it.
ask. I'm going to answer this question.
All right.
Russ, what do you think it is?
Well, I think I'll ask Chris what it is. So the dome lights stay on all the time and run the battery dead?
Actually, no. The dome light goes off, comes on and goes off when you open and close the door, but then the light burns out for some reason. He goes in there, the light's black. He goes and gets another dome light, puts it in, and then he has issues with the car starting.
That's the twist. When he said Russ answer this, I was like, okay,
right.
yeah,
Okay.
please do. So this sounded really weird to me.
He puts the new bulb in, and then it won't start, like it won't turn over or won't fire.
Or it does that.
Just the opposite,
It
I
won't-
think, isn't it?
It won't start at all, like it's dead.
Okay, so the battery's
And
dead.
he's changed the battery. Yeah, he's changed the battery too. I've already told him. They went and bought a new battery, and it still does the same thing.
So every 2 months, the light bulb burns out, and then the car won't start. Those are together.
Correct.
Okay.
But here's where it doesn't make sense. You put a new bulb in, it doesn't start. But if the bulb's bad, it won't start. But it's gone for 2 months. It must have been starting in between. Is he jump starting it in this time in between while the bulb's
No,
still in?
he puts the bulb in, jump starts, and then he's fine for like 2 months. The car operates, not an issue. Then the dome light burns out, and then he replaces it, and the car won't start.
Okay, I got to
It's
ask
the
one more
weirdest
question
thing
here.
I've ever seen.
This has got me just confused. Car starts, 2 months is going on, car starts, doesn't stop. Dome light burns out. Is the car still starting before he puts the new dome light in?
Correct. That is correct.
And so then
Okay.
once he puts the new bulb in,
Then it doesn't start.
there is some sort of
Correct.
heavy-duty voltage spike that's
Just-
burning that thing out and also draining the battery at the same time. It's like a nuclear bomb has hit it.
Just take the bulb out and then get yourself one of those camping lanterns that are battery LED and screw it to the roof,
Hang it from the roof. Yeah.
and it can just swing along.
We've
and
got
then-
in one of our buildings where we couldn't put proper lighting because of some things. One of those LED, like just fake
Yeah.
wall switches.
Is it
And
the
they
clapper?
glow- No, you just turn the switch and it glows the whole thing.
Yeah.
Just put one of them
Oh.
on the roof.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a little flip switch and then the whole thing glows up.
as seen
And
on
stickers
TV.
on
Oh,
the
they
back.
work great. They got them at every little
Mm-hmm.
gotcha aisle as you go out to
Yep.
the checkout. They're nice.
I have not tried one. I thought they were a gimmick.
They actually glow pretty good. They do work pretty good. So I don't know. He's got to be having like a major voltage surge, blows out the bulb.
I'm wondering.
And then at that point, when he puts the bulb back in, it's already dead because of whatever blew the bulb out. That's a theory.
This is the first time I've heard of this.
Does he have any nefarious connections? Is he getting blasted by EMPs by a foreign government?
Yeah, do you work in a consulate somewhere?
Right.
I hope not. No, I don't think so. No, I think maybe the voltage spike is probably where you're at with this. You know what I mean? It's got to be doing.
Is
something.
anything else getting
And
damaged?
No, and he disconnected the running lights. He thought that was the issue, so he doesn't even have those in there, figuring he would drain on the battery. And then he went out and I told him, I said, I would just replace the battery at this point. And it keeps doing the same thing. So I'm just perplexed. I don't know.
If it weren't happening intermittently, if it were happening just continually, what would you have a better direction? Okay.
I'd start testing things to find out what was pulling current. You know what? When this bulb is out, just leave the bulb out and drive it for 6 months. I mean, you can get by without a bulb for a while, but just leave it out and drive it and see what it does. And if it doesn't have a problem, if you take this into a shop, just tell them, if you take this into the shop, I talked to the guys under the hood. They said this is probably going to cost you anywhere from $300 to $1,000, depending on how much diagnostic time and the whatever's wrong with it.
And they may not fix it.
And and then you say, what is a light in the interior of your car worth? You've got one on your cell phone. How much is it worth? Is it worth $1,000? And if he says, well, sure, well, let him go in and spend his money.
I got a sneaking suspicion. You said this happens every 2 months. I got a sneaking suspicion if he leaves the bulb out, that this is still the battery's still gonna go dead. Has he tried that?
Yeah, well, no, I'm going to tell him that, like what you were saying, Russ, just leave it out.
Yeah.
And
see what happens.
What happens at this point. Don't even put it back in. And if it runs, like you said, it's $300 to $1,000, you can go buy a flashlight, a little flashlight for what, $10 now? And
all serious, kidding aside, they do make little LED lights that are battery operated with one push button on them that you could attach to the cover of that dome light.
Just adhesive.
Just a little tiny small thing, and you just push it and turn it on, and you'd have a dome light.
But I think the problem, the dome light is the canary in the mine.
Right. You think the dome light is
there's just something else going on that this car is intermittently through a fuse panel or a junction block or something is letting power escape, ground out. There's something going on there that is obviously not right, and I'd be throwing a fit too to try to figure that out. I had to use the joke twice.
Why did you have to use it twice?
Because they're so small. I think you actually could throw one.
Mark, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. Please let us know how this goes. You can message us or call us back, whichever, because this one's interesting. That I'm very curious to see. I think you're right, though. I think that bulb is just an indicator that it's happening again. And he could just wear a headlamp all the time. I've pretty much started wearing a headlamp around the house all the time because I just
randomly want to see.
Yeah. Welcome to the Under the Hood Show. We are glad to have you with us. Russ Evans is here to answer your automotive questions.
I am. Thanks for joining us under the hood. We appreciate it.
Shannon Nordstrom is here to do the same.
Welcome, hoodies. Thanks for tuning in so we can help you tune up.
I'm Chris Carter here to answer your calls at 866-594-4150. These kids today with their phones. Look at the kid over there in the other studio taking pictures of it's like he's on Snapchat or something.
I think he should be taking pictures, that's for sure. There is some amazingly cool stuff happening in that studio over there. Check out our Facebook page, and you'll see the level of surprise you may not be able to measure.
Right.
But by Doug. He was a little stoic about the whole thing. But Russ was Santa in the workshop for the last week and completely overhauled the production room in our studio. And it's a tribute to Doug and Prairie House Productions, his company. And so as he just gazes around right now, as he's still gazing,
he's sending pictures to his friends.
Check out the video. Russ did a amazing job of just putting some personal touch because he sits in there by himself. He's lonely in there. Look at sad face.
I got his mic hooked up now.
If you go to his TikTok page, he was doing a dance during hour one. He was doing this TikTok thing. He was nailing it. So it's neat.
So his mic works in there, right?
Yeah, you just hit the mic there and turn it
Oh,
up.
right there?
And he
Yeah.
can. Hi, Doug.
Hello.
Oh, hey.
You don't get on the show very often, but with some.
Okay.
Not only has he been making these beautiful ambience improvements,
Mhm.
our technology's been completely gone through. So he hasn't been able to do that, has he?
No,
I wish I had a cough button though.
we'll just turn you off.
That was a very good joke if you don't know us.
We're moving on after that. I think we need to. Okay. 866-594-4150. Let's go to California and talk to Rhonda. You're on the Under the Hood Show, Rhonda. What can we do for you?
Hi there, guys. Thanks for taking my call. I have a 2000 Honda Civic LX, has 250,000 miles on it. In October, I had the head gasket replaced because I was told it leaked and needed to be replaced. By December, I needed a new head gasket. So it basically had about 2,000 miles on it. Took it back to the original mechanic, and he had no explanation of why the head gasket failed. None whatsoever. He replaced it free of charge, fortunately, and told me he would never work on my car again. I am confused about what's going on. Now I'm having additional problems once again. I'm having the same problems all over again. I did ask him about the block. I asked him, is my block cracked? He said, no, it's not cracked. So I took it to another mechanic, and he does think that without pulling the engine apart, he does think that the block is cracked. But of course, we can't determine that until he pulls it apart.
I'm going to jump in and ask. I think that could be the mechanic saying, I'm never going to work on your car again. Could be one, it could be nefarious or mean-spirited, but it also might simply be, I don't know what happened, so I'm not your guy.
Yeah, if it's out of warranty, he might be just saying, nope, I'm not going to try.
I'm doing this for you now, but
I can't
I can't keep doing
whatever's
this.
wrong with it. I can't help you.
What I want to jump in and say here is, and I've just got something tickling my brain here, and I don't remember when it quit, and you brought it up, but check with your VIN number. There was a range of Civics that had a recall because of a block problem. And
Really?
it was something in that range. I think you're in that year range. And, he may have not seen a crack. Maybe there's some, if it didn't get planed, maybe there's some warping on the block. But there was something about a crack on the back sides of the blocks on those Civics that caused a problem. But
The guy from Cartersville called and had this problem. Remember, Chris? And he fixed it with K-Seal. Remember, this is about 3 years ago, and there was a problem with the block.
that was going to be my next question: is how are you getting hot? Are you losing coolant? What is your symptom once it starts going bad again?
Well, it was the first time it was losing coolant, but it took a long time for it to get hot. And then when it did, it was like, okay, it's really hot. But it would take a long time for the radiator to basically drain. But the second time, I was driving, or I started up my car, and white smoke just started pouring out my tailpipe. That was the second time of the head gasket. But now it's been overheating, bubbling up in the overflow container, the overflow tank, whatever you call it. And but I did replace, because I Googled it. Sorry, I Googled it. I was so desperate. I did replace my radiator cap, and it actually hasn't overheated since then, which seems a little crazy to me.
Okay.
But I still smell coolant. I don't think the problem is fixed, because I just don't think a radiator.
What are you going to do if she
fix
comes into your shop, Russ?
All right, so a radiator cap that is bad can definitely cause overheating, because what happens is it's similar to home. If you put a pressure cooker on the stove and you turn it on, the water is going to start boiling in it at 212. If you put the lid on it and close the valve for the pressure cooker, it won't boil. It'll build up pressure, and the more pressure, the higher the boiling point. Same way with this car. Most radiator caps are going to fall in about the 16-pound range so that it will allow that engine to get up to 210 to 220, 225 in some cases, depending on how hot it is and if the air's on in summer and stuff like that. That keeps that coolant from boiling. If we were to let an engine sit in our shop driveway with the radiator cap off to warm up, eventually, if it gets hot enough, it can start boiling and overheat if there's a pressure. It depends on the level, the antifreeze that's in it and the coolant, that kind of thing. But yeah, a radiator cap can definitely cause some issues. And also, coolant can go one way out into the bottle, but not pull it back in, so it can be low on coolant. So yeah, a radiator cap can definitely do this. But if you have white smoke coming out the tailpipe, it's already too late. You definitely have had a head gasket issue or a block issue, something causing coolant to be drawn in to that combustion area, which has burned out the exhaust.
In this case, let me ask you this, is the fact that she's had all these problems will make the smell test almost irrelevant, won't it? Because she's going to smell that unless it's all, I mean, if it were 6 months ago and you started smelling again, but if you'd boiled over, you're going to smell that for a long time, no matter what you do, right?
Right.
Or unless you clean it.
Or there's
off.
some in her, and there's some that got into her exhaust Cadillac converters. It does linger.
Yeah.
I got to ask, and I think Russ, you might be ready to ask the same question. So today, are you losing coolant?
Not. Okay, I just replaced the radiator cap on Friday, and it doesn't seem like I'm losing coolant, and I'm not overheating, which I'm a little paranoid now, just to be honest. I've had to call AAA for a tow several times because of these issues. I'm a little paranoid. I watch my gauges constantly, and I don't know, like, it seems like it's going almost up to the halfway, but I don't know if that's normal or
normal.
And then it backs way down.
Let's do this. Make sure your coolant level is up to the correct area it should be. Monitor it in your bottle. I would recommend, because you're going to spend a bunch of money otherwise, because the other guy has already did one warranty repair. He's not doing anything else for free. He's made that clear to you. Right, wrong, or otherwise, we could debate that all day long. But he's made it clear, hey, I'm going to fix this for free a second time. I think I did everything right. I'm not doing this again. The product that is a partner of ours is K-Seal, K-Seal. And I would put a bottle of that K-Seal in there. It is it's a ceramic sealant, and it will not hurt anything. And so if there is a slight leak somewhere, it will help seal that if it can. If it's too big, it can't. But if it's something that can be sealed, it will work. And then I also would have somebody do a hydrocarbon test on your coolant to see if you're getting any hydrocarbons into the coolant. Because if you
exhaust gases.
I said hydrocarbon, but exhaust gases. You're looking for things in that coolant that do not belong there, and they can do that with a test. And it's not an expensive test. It's an easy test. And if you don't have any exhaust gases in your coolant and you're no longer losing coolant, and that car has 250,000 miles on the engine, I would say thank you to the stars of Honda that are making that survive. They will go that long. And but if you're going to get to the point where you got to start doing more head gasket type stuff, I'd look for a different engine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you're going to keep the car, I would look for a different engine. I would find a recycled engine for somebody that you can verify on Carfax. Maybe there's a low mileage one that got wrecked and you can find one with 100,000 miles on it. I would look for that. And I also would have your VIN number checked just to see if you happen to be in that lot where they had block problems with the castings. And if it is, they're not going to do anything for you anymore because I think it's too old. But at least you'd know you might be fighting something. But that K-Seal might take care of that.
And Rhonda, just for your own knowledge, you're going to watch the temperature on this car for the rest of the car's life.
I do.
And maybe your other cars. Because I had the same problem with one of my cars. It's been a long time, no problems. No, the Pontiac. Okay. But I still always have the temperature up on the dash so I can watch it 100% of the time, and that will never go away. You'll be nervous forever. Thanks very much for the call, Rhonda. Good luck.
Car feeling ill? Don't want to spread it to your wallet? Call the Motor Medics now for free advice.
(866-594-4150). You're listening to the Under the Hood Show. Let's talk to Mike. You're on the Under the Hood Show, Mike. What can we do for you?
Yes, this again is on my '06 Vibe. The heater switch on the dash.
Mm-hmm.
When I turn it on, the radiator fan will kick on, but only when the selector switch is either on the windshield or the windshield and floor setting. And when it's on the other, floor or floor and vent, it does not. And I can't find anything in the manual. Should that be normal or is something wrong?
You talking about the engine fan turns on, right?
Yes,
Okay.
when it's in the windshield or the selector switches to the windshield.
Good, because I was about to say, oh, that's normal. And then if you told me, no, the blower inside only comes on in those positions, I said, go throw that thing away and get a new car. I mean, new control.
But in this case,
Or
he's
car.
talking about the engine cooling fan system.
Perfectly normal. What happens is when it's in the defrost position or the defrost floor, it's turning on the air conditioning compressor in order to dehumidify that air. Because if you have fog on your windshield, well, the fog is made up of water condensation. So to remove that, we turn the air conditioning compressor on to remove the moisture, lower that humidity, and lower that dew point so that we can clear the window off faster. If you were to unplug the compressor under the hood and try to defog that window, it would take much longer without the compressor providing the refrigeration. And whenever the compressor is running, it is going to, chill. It's going to turn the fans on because the pressure is increasing in that HVAC system. So when the pressure comes up, boom, turns the fans on. Now, some cars, Hondas were good for this for a lot of years. The older ones, like over 10 years old, even if the compressor didn't work, it would just kick those fans on because it was a direct route. But on this car, on the Vibe, it's going to be a pressure switch that senses. So the good news is you've got refrigerant in it, so your AC system should work.
Yep. Good. That's what I needed to know.
We like giving good news.
Yeah, that's thanks very much for the call, Mike.
Nothing's wrong.
That is so I've learned or I've developed the ignore it gene. Because there's been many a time where I've said, hey, my car's doing this, and you're like, yeah, that's normal.
I can't ignore stuff. The little things, the more we were mentioning in the studio, the more things
God,
we fix.
Listen, I know what you're going to say.
Yeah.
I know what's driving you nuts right now.
Oh, nothing right now.
Oh, okay.
But the more things that are fixed, it's like a room. You walk into a room that's 100% clean, not one spot, not one furniture, anything. You'll notice the flea on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's full of garbage, you're not going to notice the McDonald's bag right in front of you, right?
Right.
So, yeah, I like things to work.
I would like to say that your ignore it gene is working amazingly good, Chris.
On my car maintenance?
No.
Oh.
No. Are we ready to go to the next caller?
Yeah. What?
You did not make a vibe joke.
No,
I made it before the call.
Yeah,
I pointed and laughed
So keep going.
at Chris, and not at the caller, at Chris.
I bet that vibe looks modern.
Keep going.
Let's go to Arizona and talk to Lorette. You're on the Under the Hood Show. What can we do for you?
Hi.
Hi
Can you hear
there.
me?
Yep, you bet.
Hi. So I have a 1995 Mazda MPV minivan, and I've had it for about 20 years or so, and I've never had it have this problem, but it's probably my fault. It had an oil leak because a gasket there was a gasket that needed to be replaced, and the mechanic I took it to said that I shouldn't, and so he said it was a small leak, so he put maybe some silicone on it, but we didn't fill up the oil to full. It was still on low, and I would say then I noticed this ticking sound that kind of scared me. It was like a loud ticking sound. So I took it to a different mechanic who said that because of the oil leak on the manifold, because I could smell like this weird smell. So he said that smell was oil burning on the manifold, and that the ticking sound is that maybe the bearings or something got really thin and it's giggling around and it's just making all this noise. So then, but he suggested that I could still drive it around until it breaks down, which I don't want to break down in the middle of traffic or cause an accident. And then I talked to a different mechanic yesterday he's not ASE certified, but he said he's backyard certified. And he said that the same thing happened to his Suburban, is that he started hearing the ticking sound, but not to the point where like as bad as mine. And so he's not driving it. And so I haven't been driving mine. And now the battery died. And I noticed the battery's like a 3-year battery, but it's 2.5 years old now. So, and then I saw it leaking acid, so I put baking soda with a little bit of water on it to neutralize it. But I'm not sure, should I be recharging the battery too in order to try to start the car? Or is it worth it to buy a new, exchange out the core and get a new battery, maybe like a 2-year battery, just to try to see if this car should still be driven?
Let's wrap this all together here. How many miles are on the Mazda?
Yeah. About 135,000.
Okay, so not bad. I mean, I haven't discussed a Mazda MPV van with anybody for quite some time. It's I wonder if that's multi-purpose van, vehicle, multi-passenger van. I wonder what the MPV. Okay, anyway, the oil leak that you had. Do you ever know for sure that you got low enough on oil that you ran low or out?
Okay, I didn't run completely out, but it always like at rest it would be at the low mark, and then I would add more oil to get it.
Okay,
above
so
the
that's
low
not a
mark.
problem. If you've just lost a little bit of oil where you're down and you're losing it to the low mark, and then you put some more back in, that should not have been enough to cause premature engine damage. What I'm wondering about is that vehicle may have some valves that, like that Honda we talked about in a previous show, that they can do some adjustment on. And I would want to know if that noise is coming from the top end or the bottom end. I would want to have somebody that's more of a professional listener they should be able to tell you that sounds like, lifter follower noise from the top end of the engine. That sounds like a little bit like a timing chain. That sounds like main bearing noise. Somebody with a lot of experience should be able to tell you what that noise sounds like. I'm hoping that it's a light tappet noise, and then you could try an additive, like our partners at Justice Brothers have engine and oil treatments. I would try that first, and then I would determine. Now, if it's just clatter, clatter, rattle, rattle, and it sounds like a main bearing's coming out of it, which somebody's got to tell you that if you don't know that noise, you might just have something that happened where the motor decided simultaneously, I'm done.
So go buy a cheap battery and drive it. And that way, if it does have a problem and it needs an engine, don't put an engine in it for the cost of it at this age and this miles. But if you got a cheap battery, then take the battery back out when you part it out.
Yeah, if you're going to replace the van, research something that's going to be newer. You're going to be so appreciative if you can get there and make that happen compared to what you have now, just the driving and everything. You're really going to appreciate that.
Thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us. MPV, according to Wikipedia, stands for the multi-purpose passenger vehicle. So
That's
it's
4.
MPPV.
Oh, boy.
But there you go. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show. 866.
Get your planner out right now and schedule your next radio appointment with the Motor Medics.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. If you subscribe to our YouTube channel, please do subscribe and click the bell and rate and review it all. Do the things that you're supposed to do and join the Hoodie Fan Club. You're supposed to do that too. They don't say it on all the YouTube channels, but they mean it. You should join the Hoodie Fan Club at underthehoodshow.com because you could win a hoodie.
Like Joy Peterson. Congratulations from all of us here under the hood and our friends over at Universal Technical Institute, uti.edu. Could be motorcycles, Could be CNC machining. Could be welding. Could be airframe and power plant. Boats, marine mechanics, cars, even NASCAR Technical Institute. UTI.edu is the place for you.
Just the one lug now.
Yep. I want to.
Is the course 40%? Is it 20%?
The NASCAR
of it?
thing you're saying? Since they don't have to
used
do all the lug
5
nuts.
lugs, right? Now
I'm
they have
guessing they
one.
do a little more than that.
Okay.
The lug nut training is different.
Screwed that up so bad.
You
I was
did.
on it. You even knew
I knew
where
right
it
where
was
you're
going,
going.
and you were appreciative already, but I couldn't get it out.
I tell you what, I'm really ready to start thinking about boats. I'm thinking, it just doesn't seem like we're ever going to see a boat in our part of the country right now.
I said, I'm done shoveling or moving snow. I'm just going to deal with it till it's over. That backfire, I can't. It's too much. It's just beating me down. I have to do it now.
Speaking of boats,
So bummed.
I saw something new the other day. New to me. It may have been out for longer than I think, but it was a new style of drive. The Bravo 1 drives you see, most people know what I'm talking about. Anyways, the out drives on boats, not an outboard, but an inboard outboard, IO. So you've got the engine inside, car engine inside basically, and then you've got an outdrive hanging off the back. When you look at it, what do you see, Shannon? If you're standing right behind it and you reached out and touched it, what are you going to grab a hold of?
Prop.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. If you're standing on the back of the swim platform and you jump off and the engine's running and you touch that on the backside, what's going to happen? Yeah.
Seriously injured.
Yeah. They're putting the prop on the other side. The prop
Make
is
it
no
a-
longer on the back of the outdrive. It's on the front of the outdrive, pulling
Making it a
pulling
pull
the boat
drive.
through the water instead of pushing.
Like
So
a
if-
plane.
yeah, and it's tucked up under the swim platform. So if you were to, try to
So
climb
even
up,
different from the center prop boats where they're
right? They're just putting the prop. It's basically like they turn the unit backwards
Mm-hmm.
and put the fin underneath. Yeah. So if you touched it with your foot on the backside, you're just going to touch smooth metal. The prop it's actually like a foot and a half further forward. So it's a long way. But I saw that at one of our marine places in here in town. They're just sitting out by the street, and I looked over and went, something doesn't look right. So I pulled in. I had to check it out. Then I started doing some research, and because I had to know everything about it, of course.
Mhm.
But
Does it
I
still
thought
have a
that was-
skag? Does it still have a skag?
Yes, but it's in the normal position, but the prop is on the front
Yeah.
side of it, so the back.
Interesting.
And I didn't know how it affect performance or anything, but that is ingenious for somebody with a swim platform on the
Yeah.
back of a boat. Why didn't they come up with this? They could have done this literally 70 years ago on outboards, and they didn't until now. But I thought, hey, that's pretty slick.
It's because of 3D printing, I'm sure.
Probably.
866-594-4150. Let's talk to Glenn. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Glenn, what can we do for you?
Hi, guys. Love your show. Long time listener.
Thank you.
I've got a 2017 Cadillac XT5, 3.5 liter V6, 38,000 miles. My wife's car. That's important. I was driving my wife's car on the way to Des Moines last weekend. Got stuck in traffic and was unable to get out, and it overheated.
Ooh.
It took me about 10 minutes to get the thing pulled over. When I did get it pulled over, I opened the hood and the fan of the radiator was not running. It did immediately drop in temperature. My question to you is, A, what maybe happened to it and what do I need to look for? B, do I trade the car off?
Depends on how hot that thing got. It might.
Do we
it
know?
might
Could
have
you
had-
smell hot? Do you know it was actually
No.
getting hot, or were you getting faulty gauge
Well,
readings?
That's what I'm questioning. Is it possibly a faulty gauge reading? Because when I opened the hood, it was 46 degrees outside. It wasn't all that. It didn't seem that hot. And once we started moving, the temperature came right down.
It is.
But I stood stuck in traffic with that thing pegged for about 10 minutes.
Yeah, then that sounds more like a problem. That engine has had a problem with the temperature sending unit and the connector going to it that would cause it to read hot, and then on the dash it would say check gauges AC off. It shuts it down when that happens. So that could be the problem. But if it truly is overheating, it could be because you were stuck in traffic, no airflow going through there, and the cooling fans are not working properly. So the first thing I would do, if it's above 55 degrees or so outside where you can turn the air conditioning on, turn it on or put it in the defrost position and see if the fans kick on. If they do there, then we know the fans should operate.
Okay.
Then we're going to let it sit and idle by itself and listen. Watch for those fans to come on. If that gauge gets up and it's up to that 225 range and they still haven't come on yet, keep watching them. Once it hits 230, shut it off because they're not going to come on. You've got a problem with a sending unit or something or a relay, and they can fix that. But if it's fine going down the road, the temp gauge isn't fluctuating from hot to cold, and you're not losing heat inside, then you probably don't have a head gasket issue yet, but you'll need to get those fans fixed. When we put an engine in a car at our shop, and we put in literally thousands of them, one of our steps is when the car is done, we check it before when it's coming in. Did the air conditioning work? And did the fans work? Yes. Okay. Now we've got the job done. Do the fans still work with the air on? Because we don't want to overheat any of the system. And we let it sit there and idle and run in the driveway until the fans kick on. Then we know it's not going to overheat, because what if we left something unplugged? So that's the test we do, the idle test, waiting. But if they don't come on with the air conditioner, I'm not going to sit there and wait for.
Right. Yeah. Is there a chance that it's just the temp gauge on the dash that's?
It's probably not on a Cadillac.
Okay.
These cars, I have never seen a gauge.
It'd be
problem.
highly unusual.
Yeah,
Okay.
it would be super unusual in this car.
Glenn, are you familiar with overheating it? And in the past, you've had cars that overheated and stuff.
That's why we've got this car.
Oh, okay. So was there any evidence?
I had a Cadillac North Star before this. That we replaced.
Yeah, just don't even make that comparison.
Yeah,
Whole different animal.
So my question is, was there any other evidence of it overheating besides the temp gauge inside?
No.
Okay.
No, we purchased this thing in December, so it hasn't been in warm weather yet. And this was only the second time I've ever driven it.
Russ, would there be any history trail in that computer that they would show if you hooked up to it?
No.
High temperature or anything like that?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. There are.
Well, even if it was, it could be erroneous if it was a bad reading.
Right. There are a few vehicles out there that have manufacturers that put some things in there like that. One says engine overspeed, warranty void. That's a code. And the other one is extreme overheating, warranty void. So if they're measuring by a cylinder head temperature, so they don't you can't use the excuse, well, it was low on water, so it couldn't get a good reading. No, it's got a cylinder head temp, and you drove it with the gauge pegged for a very long time, which is, wouldn't be covered. Or the engine overspeed, that one's only on manual transmission cars of this model. And if you were doing the racing thing with it, you crammed it into lower gear and floored it and pushed it past the rev limiter, it would set that code. So this car, though, no thing like that.
Glenn, thanks very much for the call. Good luck.
We never answered his question about trading it off.
Oh, yeah, it's not up to you.
Yeah, that's not a great practice.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
Unless you trade it off as bad, you say, "Hey, this thing's been overheating. I don't want it anymore."
I sense that.
What do you give me for it?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, we have enough
let's
people.
assume Glenn would. Let's
we
just
have enough
assume
people come to us that bring us a car and say, "I just bought this a week ago, and it's been overheating ever since I bought it." And they said, "As is no warranty, and I'm stuck."
You just don't hear about those cars overheating a lot. I just have
not those.
I have a hunch that it
the
didn't overheat.
Yeah,
sensors a lot on these cars and the wiring to it.
And
Glenn,
then everything's great.
Good luck. Thanks very much for the call. And as far as you just let her. You gotta just let her decide.
He'll never drive her car again.
I would like to drive that car.
So after last week's show, where we talked about the car that was stolen, the Mustang that was stolen and then recovered down in Nebraska. That was awesome. And I had a couple people get a hold of me. They left messages on our phone, said, "You don't have to call me back." But they also emailed me, and they were talking about how they had friends and their cars had been damaged while they were being restored. They were in their garage. The garage burned down. Tornado took the barn down that they were in, and the insurance company wouldn't cover them. My answer to that is, that's great information, but our partner at Berkeley One Classics does cover cars that are being restored. They also cover car parts. So if you list your car with them, let's say you got a 79 Trans Am, Shannon, and it's being restored.
I have this very thing going. I have an 81 Trans Am that's in
right in
and
our.
I have it
in our
stored
garage.
with Berkeley. I have it with Berkeley One. I have to give an update each year about what's been done to it.
Do you feel guilty if you tell him
do,
nothing?
Because this car,
Yeah, because he's not working on it.
This car is becoming my dad's '57 Chevy that we gave him so much a hard time about that he never restored. He never finished it. He sold it 3/4 done, and it was just never got done. I'm doing it's a repeat.
So they cover the parts though. So he's got the car, he's got the engine, he's got the rear end, and they're different things. Plus he's got duplicates of a lot. They have a list and they'll cover all that. So when you're looking for an insurance company, especially restoration, check with Berkeley One Classics because that answers that question directly.
866-594-4150. Let's go to California and talk to Kevin. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Kevin, what can we do for you?
Hi, I have a 2001 Jeep Cherokee, which I guess those years had problems with the heads cracking, and I have a cracked head. It overheats like at stoplights. Not at stoplights, but if I'm parked for a really long time. So I tried some K-Seal, and it worked for about 2 weeks. I don't know if the crack's gotten bigger, and that's why I'm doing it again. I could see the crack if I open the oil cap and look straight down.
That's too big.
Yeah.
When you get into the nitty gritty of K-Seal, that's too big.
Yeah.
I'm surprised it worked at all.
At all.
Wow. Yeah.
So
what I was wondering is, if I get a head off of a Jeep at a junkyard, it's just like a toy, it's not my daily driver or anything, so not looking to spend a whole heap of money on it.
If you could get a hold of a cylinder head from, say, a self-service yard, is it a 4-liter inline?
Yeah.
And you could, confirm what yours fit. Like, and I know at our facility, we have a fitment computer. People can look up what fits what before they go out searching. And you could find one that was, say, wrecked, of the vehicle, not just sitting there not wrecked. Maybe,
you don't want it to have worn out. You want it to have broken.
Yeah. Or something like that.
Yeah.
There's a really good chance you could get a head that would work just fine to bolt on. But you still, when you're doing that, you got to make sure the valves look good, inspect them, physically, inspect for cracks. If you wanted to, that's a cast iron head. You can send it to a machine shop and they can magnaflux that. Or is that an aluminum head? Russ was looking at me when I said that.
No. I was just like, what? But no.
You could send it to a machine shop and they can magnaflux it and look for cracks that you would never see. It's a machine shop process that has been used for years, magnafluxing of steel parts. And that's something that could be done. But there's a pretty good odds that if you don't care about every bit of performance, that you could put on a used cylinder. Now, we have a lot of people that buy used cylinder heads, but our warranty on them, I'm just talking about myself personally, is that the casting is good. We're never going to sell a used cylinder head and say, hey, bolt this on and take her to California.
Right.
We're letting you know that we think that the casting is good. You still may have to do valve work. You still may have to do some planing to it to get it flat, that sort of a thing. But it happens a lot where people use them. Cam journals need to be good and inspected. But yeah, it happens a lot. Because if you put on a brand new head or a remanufactured head on a used motor with a bunch of miles, that can be a problem too. Is all of a sudden you start burning oil because the pressures aren't the same.
And make sure, as always, when you're doing head work and you're about to you got to blow in it. Really clean it out. Just
that will
you gotta.
That'll do nothing.
Remind me not to get
Tap it
anywhere
on
near that microphone after the show today. With Chris
all the
and
things
his
we've been talking about.
germs.
Yeah.
Kevin, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show.
Prepare to learn something. You're going under the hood.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. Let's go to Wisconsin now and talk to David. You're on the Under the Hood Show. David, what can we do for you?
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking the call. I've got a 3.0 liter Mercruiser engine on a 92 Glastron boat, and it starts fine. It seems to run fine if I'm not really pressing the engine, but when I've got it up to almost full throttle, after about 5, 10, maybe 15 minutes, I feel like I'm losing power. Then I'll hear some sort of little bit of backfiring and popping from the engine. I'll bring down the throttle, and I'll hear a ticking noise coming out of the engine. So I just kind of, let it just, as I have the throttle way down, the ticking noise kind of gets quieter and goes away, and then I can drive it hard for a little while. But then it loses power again, and the ticking comes back.
All right, before we pose this question to Russ, right? I mean, mostly Russ.
Fair.
I just want to say, David, that you calling from Wisconsin and talking about your boat on a day when we're going to arrange the show afterworks because the weather is so bad here and we're in blizzard-like conditions is maybe the most depressing phone call we've ever received at the.
Well, it's headed David's way.
I don't even care now. I'm just sad.
And there's another
all
one
the way.
headed through next week. They're saying now they're calling them
This is
climate rivers
horrible.
or something stupid like that.
I don't like this river.
If he had been given this boat in
Every 7 days.
will, I would be less sad than I am
love
now.
it. I'm getting excited for summer is when is with this call.
It feels like it's 10 years away. All right. Now let's.
I
with this
think
boat.
what's happening, guys, is that this engine is not getting enough fuel. It's losing fuel delivery. Could be just a fuel pump, or it could be a problem because it's a 92 with the fuel line starting to
Could be a
collapse
bunch
a
of
little bit.
stuff in the tank.
Yeah, so he's got the thing running wide open. It wants a fuel delivery of a certain amount. It's not getting it, so he's starting to lose power, and it's also running a little lean, and it's getting some detonation in there. It's pinging. And then when you back off, it can supply, let's say it needs a 10 at wide open throttle, but it's only delivering an 8. So when he's driving at 10 and it's only giving him 8, eventually it's falling on its face a little bit. But when you back off to where it would normally need that 7 or 8, it can catch up and it runs good for a while. It's quiet again, and you floor it and it goes down. The only way to check that would be with a fuel pressure gauge connected to that. That's still a carburetor. It's old enough. But you need a fuel pressure gauge that's going to go down into that, less than 5 pound range. Some fuel gauges only start reading at 5 to 8 pounds. So you want one that goes all the way down to like a half a pound. And then you can measure it while you're driving. And if you find out that when you're at idle, you've got, let's say, 1.5 pounds, and then you take off and you're wide open and you start looking, and I'm starting to drop down to 0.5 pound now. And then it comes back up when you release that throttle. That's where your problem is. Or if you just want to be simple about it, it's a 92. Throw a fuel pump on it. They're pretty cheap, and see if it fixes your problem. Also inspect the fuel lines very closely and make sure they're not getting cracked and drying out. If they're starting to get some cracks in them, it could be because it's pulling vacuum in that line. The pump's up on the engine and it's sucking fuel up there. Could be pulling through a hole when it's wide open. It's losing some of that and get some air in there. So if you do see crack lines, by all means, on a boat, replace those lines. You don't want any raw fuel in that bilge at all.
Now that I'm over the emotional shock, I'm feeling it too. Where in Wisconsin, David?
It's the Oconomowoc area where the boat is. But I've had the mechanics go through it. They've gone through what you said, the fuel lines, the fuel pump. They've cleaned all that stuff out, and I'm still getting the symptoms.
Have they put new lines on it and a new fuel pump?
That's a good question.
Check
I'm
that
not
out.
Sure, but okay.
Check it out, because
if
they
it were
may
if it were a little leak in the lines,
they
getting the
could
air
have
in there.
checked it, but and not replaced it, and you could still have an issue. Because we have, in our own shop on cars and trucks, we have checked something 4, 5, 6 times and said, no, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. And then you know what happens? I put that little part on there that was a pretty cheap part, and all of a sudden it fixed it. We go, I've never seen that before. Why did that fix it? It shouldn't have. And we just go, oh, whatever. And then we move on. But yeah, sometimes if we consider it good, it may not be good. But some of those parts are pretty cheap. And if you do the YouTube mechanic thing, you should be able to see how some of that stuff is done and do a lot of it yourself and save yourself. That's a ton of money. Boat, it's incredible. Some of those guys are getting $200 to $250 an hour for boat repair, and it's just not. If you have a boat shop, forgive me, but no, it's just not worth it. They don't need the amount of tools you need to repair cars, or the technology to repair cars. If you're getting electronic fuel injection, yes, but
sounds like a communist to me.
Well, it's a shorter season. So some of these things are very expensive. Camper repairs over $200 an hour in some places.
And there's so much demand in such a short period of time. It's just kind of a crazy world they live in.
What I'm trying to tell you is that if you can do it, do it yourself, save money. If you can't or you don't want to, then pay whatever it costs because it's a convenience for you and get it done. It's definitely worth it. Everything's a little different, but it's save you money if you can.
David, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. And I mean that.
Yeah. Hey, I want to give a shout out to the people that listen on KNUJ in New Ulm, Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
I just a random
station.
A random texting incident ended up with about 5 classmates getting together at Mark Bauer's house, and it seems like everybody in New Ulm knew who he was. And my dad still give me a hard time because we had a slumber party last weekend at Mark's house and played pool all night and had a bunch of fun. But we went on a tour of Shell's Brewery, and the lady that gave the tour when we got done, we were talking, and Mark says, "Oh, hey, my friend here, his family, and they have a radio show." We did the radio show, and I come to find out her husband's a huge fan. Had to take a selfie. Mark said to say hi to his neighbor Matt down the street. So to the Matts in New Ulm and everybody else, I loved your town.
Now you're friendly.
I'm just trying.
Now you're all, hey guys, be safe.
I'm trying to be real.
This is the after show, and Shannon was mocking us just mere moments ago about how
I wasn't mocking
you were mocking. Doug, was he
mocking.
mocking us?
Here, let me look
He was.
outside
Look
and
at
see if I should be mocking or not.
So we
I
get
saw Russ make a funny face.
we. Now I'm.
You guys got sleeping bags with
Hold
you?
on a sec. Hold on.
What do you got for?
He better be kidding.
No, it's pretty bad out there. Oh no! I looked out the window 5 minutes ago, and I looked at Shannon. He said like, "What?" And I went,
No.
"Shh, don't say anything."
Kind of burying that lead a little
jeez.
bit when Russ looked outside.
All right, so we do have to get moving.
But the wind is supposed to come up.
So
pick your poison.
We have work to do. We're gonna do that. We can't hang out on the after show. Shannon can.
Yeah, I could sit here and
He
chat.
lives here.
I got a very important appointment coming up I need to get to, but that's gonna happen.
Yeah, I hope you're late.
I will be.
I know.
No, I won't. No, and just because of that, I'm gonna be on time.
All right, that'll do it. Thanks for joining us.
I'm
And
not gonna let you go off that easy.
I was serious about the
just as quick as I can say
notifications
it.
and the subscribe.
Keep watching the changes here. Look at our Facebook page. I'm so proud of
YouTube.
What Russ is doing on this studio.
Absolutely.
Whether it be the signal that you're hearing or the ambience of the production room. Yes, this is 2 weeks in a row of a love fest, but gosh darn it, this is awesome.
If
It's
I
pretty
go
cool.
if I go to the wide cam, Russ, can we see a little bit more in there?
Maybe
Right there.
hit cam
Is that
5
it?
and see.
Let's see.
5.
Oh, you
Nah.
can't really. It's not gonna.
Go to our Facebook page. There's a video and
Yeah, there you go.
and it kind of shows what was done in there. Pretty cool.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining us. And seriously, if you can subscribe, review, and rate, do all the things, it really does help us. So we appreciate it a lot. Thank you very much for joining us on the Under the Hood Show.